If you watch the news, you've probably heard about the problems with student housing in the Netherlands. Maastricht has severe problems to get rooms for all of their students, while in Groningen people had to live in a giant tent. But how's the situation in Enschede? This is the campus of the University of Twente. Right now we have 10,000 students studying at the UT. About 2,500 of those are living on campus. The houses on campus are owned by 3 different external housing providers: De Veste, who owns about 2,000 rooms, of which almost all are taken; Camelot, the new housing provider that owns the Hogekamp, has 445 rooms, of which 150 are taken; and lastly Logica, who owns 24 rooms, and these rooms are specifically for first and second year Atlas students. But okay, that's nice and all, but you might wonder, how do I find a room then? Well, the UT has launched a new platform in the beginning of this year called RoomSpot. This is a collaboration between the UT, Saxion, De Veste, Stichting Jongerenhuisvesting Twente and the municipality Enschede. The idea is to have all housing offered at one location. De Veste and SJT both post their offers here. You can register on this website for free, and it will give you a complete overview of available rooms, studios and apartments. It also contains a locked separate part specifically for international students that have a visa. This part also contains the rooms that Camelot offers in the Hogekamp. Students with a visa are guaranteed a room in their first year of studying. Then, what about costs? The costs for rooms on campus heavily depend on the housing provider. While the costs for the Vesta are on average around €300 for shared housing, the cost for solitary living can be more expensive. Camelot's rooms cost more on average and require a larger safety deposit. Logica's prices are similar to the Vesta's. However, the pricing for student housing in Enschede is considerably lower compared to the rest of the Netherlands. So, what is our situation concerning housing? How difficult is it to find a room here? How do you apply for a room? And does it matter whether you speak Dutch or not? You'll see in this video.
What does the University Council do regarding to the housing problem?
So it has been wrapped up last consultation meeting where we touched upon the recent news all around Camelot and the situation around housing in general. And the general conception is that it's a responsibility of the university. However, it's not a direct responsibility. Since we're not building our own houses, but rather work together with partners, they can point out certain things or, for example, set some conditions, give some advice as well. However, in the end, it's always the decision of the partner we're cooperating with.
Ik ben programmamanager housing. Dat betekent dat wij maart 2017 het huisvestingsbeleid hebben opgesteld. Daarin stonden allerlei activiteiten, werkzaamheden en doelstellingen die we wilden realiseren rondom housing. En ben ik voor gevraagd om dat op te pakken. En het beleid zegt dat wij iedereen willen helpen aan kamers. Alleen, wij kunnen niet iedereen garanderen. Dus daar hebben wij een knip in gemaakt. Alle visumpplichtige studenten, medewerkse gasten, krijgen voor het eerste jaar huisvesting gegarandeerd. En alle Europese nationale studenten, die proberen we zoveel mogelijk te helpen door genoeg aanbod op de markt te creëren.
You used to live on campus. Did you find it difficult to find a room here?
Yes, I asked the organization that is taking care of the houses here, and they rejected me for a couple of months, but finally they had a room available which I could come in. But it was until I was already here, so I had to look for another place to live before coming to the campus. I'm Spanish, so I'm European, and the houses here that were furnished are for international students and not European people.
I was really lucky. I signed in for one of the rooms on the box and I got in through a lottery, like 1 in 160. At first I wanted to live with other students as well, but as time grew closer I was like, I'm gonna also look for rooms who are on my own. I sent I think about 12 mails, and that's not even that much. Like I heard people who sent 40 or so and it didn't even get a room.
I got a lot of personal complaints as well. Can you please forward that or push this forward? We discussed that in the University Council and put that in the consultation meeting forward as well towards the CVB. The university truly recognizes the problems, knows about the supply and demand issues that we have, and they're also working on providing qualitative and quantitative housing. However, again, it's constrained within the collaborations with the partners that we have since we don't have own housing.
It was difficult for me to get a room on campus. While I was back home in Nigeria, I applied for a couple of rooms via RoomSpot. So after applying, I was supposed to send an email to a particular email address convincing them why I want to be part of the room. Haven't done all of that. I didn't hear from them, so I was a little bit worried, and here I am. I'm supposed to come into the Netherlands. So upon my arrival, I went to the student services and I was like, oh, I've applied for like 4 rooms and I'm yet to hear from any of them. I was so lucky. She was like, oh, I should give her a second. She's going to speak to the housing officer. And the next minute she came back, a room has been given to me. I was just lucky. That's just it. Because I had a couple of friends that have been on it for like weeks.
You did send a lot of emails, and why do you think it is that people don't reply?
I wouldn't know. What I did was I just sent an email. Okay, I want to be a part of the apartment. Probably I was expected to write something, maybe like to convince them or something, but I didn't do that. I just went straight to the point. Because when I came in, I realized I was supposed to tell them, oh, I'm a guy that likes to party. I'm a guy that likes to do that. I'm a guy that don't like to take alcohol and all of that. Probably that was why I didn't get any response from them.
In terms of housing, the student union makes sure the students' voice is heard on really a lot of different policies within the UT here too. Of course, we're not directly involved in the housing policy and stuff is something that is the UT's jurisdiction, I guess. But we do try and advise on that.
Are there certain opinions that you hear a lot from students?
Well, of course, we just got a new building on campus, and of course, there's a lot of comments associated with that. We also hear questions all the time about how to find a house, what the easiest way is. A lot of international students have difficulty finding rooms in Dutch houses. The reasons for this we are looking into a lot. And in general, I think through all of the Netherlands, there's kind of a problem that there's too little housing for the amount of students coming in.
Why do you think that it matters so much whether someone speaks Dutch or not?
Well, we've been asking around about this a lot, actually. We don't have any concrete results on why that is.
What I've heard from stories is indeed a lot of internationals being like, hey, they're Dutch houses, we can't come in. But I'm also hearing that from vegetarian people. I don't know whether it's specifically internationals which is the problem or just certain groups which are just different.
I am also planning on perhaps moving to the Netherlands. Enschede and the students here are really welcoming to internationals and so on. But I think it just makes it easier for Dutch students to have another Dutch housemate.
Maakt het dan nog uit voor jullie of iemand Nederlands spreekt of niet?
Ja, we hebben toch wel een lichte voorkeur voor iemand die wel Nederlands spreekt. Ik vind zelf als ik thuis kom na een lange dag van college of zo, vind ik het makkelijker om te communiceren in het Nederlands dan in het Engels. Als iemand bereid is om echt Nederlands te leren, dan zou het ook prima zijn. Internationale mensen kunnen ook vaak niet op gesprek komen of dan moet het via Skype. En dan is het toch moeilijker om een indruk van iemand te krijgen. Je moet ergens een selectie maken. Ik ben zeker niet tegen internationale mensen, ik vind het hartstikke leuk. Maar ik vind het zelf makkelijk om af en toe Nederlands te kunnen praten.
It's just very easy to switch in Dutch. It's not like we don't want to speak English, but in a conversation we'll quickly switch to Dutch. And that will be problematic because then you get kind of excluded. So that's why Dutch people mostly want more Dutch people. We say in the beginning it doesn't matter, but you have to be willing to learn Dutch. And yeah, later on you have to be actually talking Dutch. At least that's what we hope, because then you can actually really be part of every conversation with us.
In terms of advice, I meet with people from the UT to talk about housing and other issues which are important for students. A student sent an email to the student union and I actually met with him to discuss the issue in terms of housing.
So you're actually quite approachable in that.
I really try to be, and I think this is an important and really current issue. And so if you have questions, feel free to contact me or meet with other students and talk about it. We'd like to hear your opinion.
Recently there is a lot heard about Camelot. What is going on there?
So there were a bunch of news, right? Is it about the high prices? Is it about the questionable contracts, even questionable whether they're legal, with double costs? About required purchases, etc. That's a bit controversial. So we pointed that out, and the university also reacted officially to that in the newspapers themselves.
Camelot is net als de Veste een woningaanbieder. Het is een commerciële partij. En net als nogmaals de Veste of de SCAT hebben zij kamers beschikbaar gesteld voor de studenten van de UT. Die bieden zij vooralsnog alleen maar aan via een afgeschermd UT-deel. Voor de visumpplichtige studenten. En daar kunnen dus niet zomaar alle andere studenten opkomen.
En op dit moment wordt er ook heel veel gesproken over de prijs. Waarom zijn die prijzen nou zo duur?
Dat is de keuze van Camelot zelf. Zij zeggen dat zij dus daar een bepaald systeem achter hebben wat ook gewoon conform markt is. Het is ook gemeubileerd met heel veel faciliteiten eromheen. Op basis daarvan hebben zij een prijs bepaald. En ook natuurlijk de grootte en dat soort zaken.
Oké, en was deze prijs van tevoren bekend bij de UT?
Ja, de prijs was bekend. Wat wij ook als UT al een hele lange tijd al roepen is, begin op tijd te zoeken met de Kamer. En we hebben ook zelfs nou allerlei brochures opgesteld en ook meegegeven aan collega's van MNC. Bereid studenten voor dat ze op tijd moeten zoeken, vooral in augustus, want dan begint ook echt de drukte toe te nemen. Ja, en als je dan iets te laat bent, dan kan het zo zijn dat je een van de duurdere kamers hebt, omdat iedereen juist die goedkopere, mooiere kamer wil hebben.
I hope there is some change happening in the coming years because it's a topic over and over occurring each year. So that's a pity. So I hope that we can clap some hands in the end and say done.